In this video, we'll be covering safety symbols and where they are used. The first set of safety symbols we'll go through are the WHMIS symbols. So WHMIS stands for Workplace Hazardous Materials Information System. It is a Canada-wide information system set up to protect all Canadian workers and employers. WHMIS provides employers and workers with information about the hazardous materials they work with on the job. If you have a part-time job or are employed, you would have received WHMIS training. So who developed WHMIS? Once the need for a national information system was recognized, WHMIS was developed by joint committees of employers, unions, and governments. The WHMIS information system is based on a law in Canada that came into effect in October 1988. So it has been around for a while and has been updated recently. So we'll go through those updates later on. There are three main parts of WHMIS. So there are three main parts to help identify and handle hazardous materials safely. There are labels, and those labels are applied to the containers with materials inside, the chemicals inside. The labels supply vital warning information. Each label will have one or more warning symbols. There is the Material Safety Data Sheet, the MSDS, or as referred to now, the SDS, the Safety Data Sheet. So that safety data sheet, there are sheets of information stored separately from the material. These sheets give details for handling emergencies, cleanups, and controls the safe use of the hazardous material. The law requires the employer to have an MSDS available for every hazardous material in the workplace. So at your workplace, when you receive WHMIS training, for any chemicals that are used, there should be an MSDS sheet for that particular chemical. And then lastly, worker education. So employers must provide instruction to each worker on how to use WHMIS, what hazardous materials are on site, and how to handle them properly. So in the following set of slides are an example of a material safety data sheet, what it looks like and how the information is presented. This particular MSDS sheet is for hydrochloric acid. So on the very first page of the MSDS sheet, there are the WHMIS symbols, the protective clothing that is required. So depending on the concentration, it's very concentrated hydrochloric acid. You should be wearing a face shield, always wearing goggles, gloves, and a lab coat when handling. So the product name is provided, the chemical formula, and then additional names that the chemical might go under. So for example, hydrochloric acid is also referred to as muriatic acid. So if you go into Home Depot and you see them selling muriatic acid, you should know that it is hydrochloric acid. The MSDS will also contain physical data such as the freezing point of the chemical and the boiling point. MSDS will contain fire and explosion data. In this case, for hydrochloric acid, there is no data available, so it's not really applicable here. So you don't have to worry about a flash point or flammable limits with hydrochloric acid. MSDS sheets, more importantly, will contain toxicological properties of the particular chemical. So it will tell you what effect this chemical has on the eye, the skin, through inhalation and ingestion. So for example, with ingestion, ingesting hydrochloric acid will cause burns in the mouth, pharynx, and gastrointestinal tract. Toxicological properties also include effects of chronic overexposure. So in this case, chronic exposure to hydrochloric acid or overexposure can result in erosion of the teeth, ulceration of the nose, and many other undesired effects, basically. First aid measures are also provided. So should you be accidentally exposed to this particular chemical, how to deal with this exposure is provided. So, for example, if hydrochloric acid splashes in your eyes, it tells you what to do in this case. So, if hydrochloric acid does get into your eyes, you have to immediately flush your eyes with copious quantities of water for at least 30 minutes. So basically, you're standing over an eye wash station, having water flush your eye for about 30 minutes. In the event of skin contact, wash with water. If through inhalation, move to fresh air. If ingested, copious amounts of water. That's what you have to drink. The important thing here is, like with hydrochloric acid and some other chemicals as well, like you do not induce vomiting. Just drink lots and lots and lots of water. Preventative measures are also provided, so how to properly dispose of, how to store and safely handle hydrochloric acid, and protective measures as well. So important information is provided in these MSDS sheets for the safe handling usage of a chemical and what to do in the event of an accident. So going back to WHMIS training here, looking at the employee responsibility. So employers have a responsibility to provide training. Employees also have a responsibility themselves. So workers have the responsibility to use the system to protect themselves from hazardous materials by being able to recognize the labels, knowing what those labels mean, checking the hazards, and following the recommended procedures. So you can check the hazards by looking at the MSDS, as well as getting those recommended procedures from MSDS as well. So what are the different types of WHMIS symbols and what do they mean? So in the old set of symbols from 1988, we have this T-shaped one, which means toxic. And by toxic, health effects will appear over time. So this is kind of long-term exposure. So things like lead and benzene, if you're exposed to those chronically over time, those will have varying health effects. The skull and crossbones indicates a substance that is poisonous. And so for something that is poisonous, it means that the effects are immediate and severe. So for example, carbon monoxide, when you start to breathe that in, you feel the effects immediately. The following symbol indicates a substance that is biohazardous. And biohazardous, meaning that living organisms or their toxins can cause disease. So, for example, E. coli can cause stomach illnesses or gastrointestinal issues. HIV can cause AIDS. Tuberculosis, can lead to that particular disease. The hand with the chemical being poured on it indicates a corrosive substance. And this is a substance that can cause the skin to burn. So for example, hydrochloric acid is corrosive. The flame indicates something that is flammable. So this is something that will burn or catch fire. So for example, propane or gasoline are flammable items. The little tube indicates compressed gas. And these are products that are held under pressure. So, for example, an oxygen tank contains compressed gas. The R with the lines on top of it indicates a substance that is reactive. And so these can be a health or safety hazard under certain conditions. So, for example, fluorine is considered a reactive substance. Fluorine is like the most reactive element there is on the periodic table. The O with that's on fire indicates a substance that is oxidizing. And these are materials that can cause or promote combustion of another material. So Basically, you put these items in proximity to another. They don't have to be mixed. They just have to be close to each other. It can cause that material to catch on fire. So, for example, nitric acid is an oxidizing material. So the other set of symbols that we'll consider are a different type that are not controlled under WHMIS. So these ones fall under the Canadian Household Product Act. So not all products are controlled by WHMIS, therefore they will have different labels and symbols than WHMIS. These products are commonly found around the house, garden, and garbage and are designated as consumer products. All consumer products containing chemicals are properly identified by hazard symbols, and you would have seen these hazard symbols on stuff around your home. The hazard is indicated by the shape, color, and picture inside the symbol and are known as Household Hazard Product Symbols, or HHPS. These household product hazard symbols have different shapes around them and have a different set of symbols. So there is a skull and crossbones that indicates poison. There is the hand being dipped into a jar that's turning into bones. That indicates something that is corrosive. And then the fire indicates an item that is flammable, and then the item that the line's coming out of it indicates something that is explosive. And then the shape of the symbol around it designates different degrees of danger. So the octagon indicates an item that is dangerous. A diamond indicates warning, and then the triangle indicates caution. So the least dangerous to most dangerous in terms of symbols. So looking at these symbols and what they mean, so for something that is poisonous or toxic, so basically licking, eating, drinking, or sometimes even smelling this product will cause illness or death. So for example, windshield washer fluid, you don't ever want to drink, or furniture polish. An item that is flammable, this product or its fumes will catch fire easily if it's near heat, flames, or sparks. So contact adhesives, gasoline, gasoline is very flammable. For explosive, it indicates that the container can explode as a result of being exposed to heat, water, air, or even a strong impact. So, for example, aerosol containers. So aerosol containers you never put into a fire because those contents are usually under pressure, and it can cause rapid expansion of those contents, causing the container to explode. For corrosive, this product will burn the skin or eyes on contact, or throat and stomach if swallowed. So for example, oven cleaner, toilet bowl cleaner are corrosive products, so you don't want those to come into contact with your skin. And so just a few questions for you to work through and to answer. So, just make sure that everything is understood well. So, in the first question, what does WHMIS stand for? What is the purpose of WHMIS? What information would you find on a WHMIS label? And do all products and chemicals have WHMIS? Explain. So we will do that at some point in the future. We'll take up those answers at some point in the future. In the following, you can work to identify these symbols, write down at least one hazard symbol that it represents. So give one example of material or chemical that may have this symbol. So here we have A through H, just identify the symbol, one hazard associated with that symbol, and then an example that goes with that symbol. So just something to note that as of 2015, WHMIS symbols have changed. Most of the symbols are the same. There's just a few new ones here. So the toxic has been toxic has been replaced with harmful, and it's kind of been split into two. So health hazard and harmful. There is the new one, the harmful to the environment symbol. And there is the explosion hazard symbol as well that has changed. Otherwise, all of them are pretty much the same as before and have the same meanings as well. So depending on how old the chemicals are in your workplace, you may see old symbols, but as newer chemicals are ordered and stored, they should contain these newer symbols as well. So the last kind of question, or the last question here to work on at some point at a later date, is what is an MSDS and what kind of information would be found on it? And then some other stuff to work on is just identifying the following symbols in terms of what they indicate. So the first one has been completed for you. So the shape around this particular symbol indicates danger, and the symbol itself represents poison. So we write danger, poison. The second one, for example, the diamond around this particular shape would indicate warning, and then the symbol that goes with it is poison. So you can fill in the rest of those for the remaining symbols. So that is the end of this video covering safety symbols.